Hi, everybody. We are going through chapter 15. This is Miss Calloway for the digestive system. I'm sorry it took me so long to get it. It was a little bit more intensive than I thought it was going to be. But please read through your chapters 15, 16, and 17 because I will be recording all of those and getting them to you guys no later than tomorrow. And I'll also through this PowerPoint, they're going to be a little fast because I'm just going to go through the things that I needed to kind of highlight that you guys needed to know. Okay. And as always, I will be at Albany Tech on Monday to answer any questions or anything that I might need to clarify for you guys. Okay. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Okay. So digestive system. When we think of the digestive system, most people think of like their intestines, right? So they think about, oh, well, that's when I eat, it goes through my stomach, then it goes through my intestines, and then it comes out as waste, which is feces, correct? But there is a lot of different things that you do need to know about the digestive system. Okay. Um, Nutrients are always required for healthy body function. So we've talked about this before. We've got carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, vitamins, minerals, water. A lot of these are obtained from your diet. Some people actually if they don't have a very healthy diet, some people will take supplements, or if they have certain type of health conditions, they will also take supplements to make sure that their body is getting what they need. Okay. So the goals of your digestive system is obviously we want to make sure that we can digest those foods into those smaller molecules so that we can get them exactly that digested through the intestines so that we can get what we need out of it so that we can get rid of that waste. Okay. And then also those smaller molecules, your vitamins and your minerals and things like that that your body needs, those also will be absorbed into the blood. Okay. Um, the major functions of your digestive system, we've kind of talked about it, is digestion and absorption. So I'm going to keep going. Okay. So for this particular slide 6, you do need to know this diagram. In particular, you do need to know the teeth, the tongue, the liver, the gallbladder, the appendix, the rectum, the colon, the small intestine, the pancreas, the stomach, the esophagus, and the pharynx. Okay. So if you look on here, it'll show you where everything is. Your appendix is actually down here. Okay. That's the one thing that I felt like I probably need to kind of show you guys. Okay. We're going to move on. We're going to talk about certain things also. Okay. So let me go back to slide 7 for 1 second, if it'll let me. Nope, it won't let me, but that's okay. So slide 7 was we were comparing mechanical and chemical digestion and also describing the role of digestive enzymes. Okay, so your mechanical digestion, that is literally the physical breakdown of food into smaller pieces. Okay, so that does form a greater surface area so that the digestive secretions can come in contact with it. Okay, so make sure you write that down. That mechanical digestion is the physical breakdown of food into the smaller pieces, and what it does is it forms a greater surface area for the digestive secretions so it can come in contact with that. Okay. Your chemical digestion, that is kind of a split between complex and non-absorbable nutrient molecules. But it's basically what you're doing is you're trying to get all of that absorbed, these absorbable nutrient molecules through this high hydrolysis. And then what it does is those digestive enzymes, they will speed up that chemical digestion to get it through. Okay. Okay. Um, Read through this. I'm not going to spend too much time with it because we have so much to cover. But I'm going to skip really quick. We're going to go to um, your alimentary canal. This is a muscular tube that's about 6 meters in length. Okay, so that's pretty long because it goes from the esophagus to the anus. I didn't mean to hit that, but um, so it's not terribly long, but it's pretty long. Okay, so it extends from the esophagus to the anus, and they basically this canal it performs different digestive like functions, but that lumen, that is the hollow space within the canal through which food passes. Okay, that's slide 12. I didn't mean to hit so quick past it, but make sure you write that down. The lumen is the hollow space within that canal through which your food passes. Okay. um the wall of the alimentary canal, okay, there are layers of it, okay, and the correct sequence of the layers is what you see here: the serosa, the muscular layer, the submucosa, and the mucosa. So make sure that you know that. Okay. All right, we're going to let's go all the way to slide 22. Okay, so we're going to talk about the mouth. Okay. Um, so your mouth, the carbohydrates the digestion of the hard carbohydrates, that begins in your mouth and it ends in your small intestine. Okay, so there are some functions of your mouth, which is obviously that's where the food goes in at, right? That's where your mechanical digestion and your chemical digestion begins. That's where you swallow, right? And what kind of houses that mouth is your cheeks, your palate, which is the roof of your mouth, and then your tongue. Your tongue kind of moves it around and gets the beginning of that digestion started. Okay. So chewing is considered part of digestion. Okay. It grinds that food into smaller portion that actually helps aid digestion because, like I said in the previous slide, it increases that surface area. Okay. All right. So with this, you do need to know this diagram, okay? You do need to know the lips, where it's at, your soft palate, um, your nasal cavity, your palatine tonsils, which we've talked about that, your incisor teeth, okay, and also your tongue and your molar teeth. Okay, so we're going to go over the incisor teeth, your molar teeth, and everything in that part. So the incisors are towards the front, and then your molars are towards the back. But we're gonna don't fret. We're gonna go through that. Okay. All right, let's go to 24. Okay. Your pharynx and your esophagus. So we have talked about this quite a bit. But the pharynx and the esophagus, those are passageways during swallowing. Okay. Now, you would think that this would be part of digestion, but it's not. It's not involved in the process of digestion. It is just simply a passageway during swallowing. Okay. All right. All right. We're going to go to slide 32. Okay. Okay. So your tongue. Um, there's a lot of different things that go on in your mouth and your tongue, right? So your tongue, we talked about this. The tongue moves that food during chewing, and it mixes it with the saliva, and that's what starts that chemical digestion. Okay. But there is mucus in the mouth, and that comes from the sublingual gland that is under the tongue. Okay, so make sure you write that down. The mucus in the mouth comes from the sublingual gland that is under the tongue. Okay. All right, we're gonna keep going. Your the date. I'm going to mess it up. The decious teeth, those are 20 total teeth. Okay, so those teeth begin to come in at 6 months of age. Okay, but the teeth that come in, which is those digestive teeth, there are 20 total. Okay, and normally they are lost in the exact same order in which they are formed. Okay, and the loss of those teeth usually begin around 6. Okay, but make sure you guys know that there are 20 total teeth, that makes up the digestive teeth. Okay, all right. Okay, your permanent teeth. Okay, so these permanent teeth, these are the ones that after your digestive teeth, you lose them. Your permanent teeth, which is a teeth that you're going to have for the remainder of your life, that is what are considered permanent teeth. Okay, there are a total of 32 permanent teeth that come up. Okay, so make sure you write that down. Okay. Okay. So with your teeth, you've got your incisor teeth. Okay. So the incisor teeth are the ones that are at the front, if you look at the diagram, and that is for biting off food. Okay. So anytime you go to bite food, you're going to use those incisor teeth to bite that food. Okay. Your canine teeth, those are the ones that once you bite that food, it grasps it and it tears it and starts making it into what? Makes it into smaller pieces so that you can actually like move it around your mouth and start that digestion process. Okay. So make sure that you know that your incisor teeth is for biting off food. Your canine teeth are for grasping and tearing that food. Okay. So your canine teeth are just on the other side of those incisor teeth. Okay. They're kind of, they're kind of can be a little pointed. Okay. Also, this diagram, you also need to know that, okay? You need to know the upper canine tooth, the lower canine tooth, your lower incisor teeth, your upper and lower premolar teeth, and your upper and lower molar teeth, okay? So your molars are at the bottom towards the back. The premolars are just in front of your molars. Canine teeth, those are just on the other side of those incisor teeth, but the canines sometimes can be a little pointed, like not always, but a little bit. Okay. All right. We're going to keep it rolling. We're going to go to slide 40. Okay. So still talking about the teeth. Okay. So you do have your enamel is the part that you see when you look at your tooth. You see that enamel part. Okay. Just below that is called the dentin. Okay. But what we're going to talk about with this one is your pulp cavity. This is where the blood vessels and the nerves are at. Okay, so make sure you write that down. The pulp cavity is where your blood vessels and your nerves are housed, if you want to say it like that. Okay, so make sure you write that down. Okay, next we're going to go to slide 42. All right. We're talking about the salivary glands, but in particular, we want to talk about the salivary amylase. So when we were talking about when we bite food and your teeth start breaking it down and getting it into smaller pieces and you're rolling it around your mouth with your tongue and all of that stuff, okay? You will secrete amylase. Okay. And what is amylase? It is what starts the digestion of that starch and that glucogen into maltose, which is like maltose is kind of like almost like a paste almost, which by the time you get through chewing your food, it obviously does not look or feel like in your mouth the same way it did when you first bit into that food. Okay. But make sure you write that down. The salivary amylase, that is what starts the digestion of starch and your glucogen into that maltose. Okay. All right, let's go to 44. All right. So with your salivary glands, I actually was talking about this earlier. Your parietal glands, that is under your tongue. If you look at this diagram right here, you can see it to the left. It's just below the parotid duct. You will see your parotid gland. Okay, that is what secretes that saliva, and that saliva is rich in salivary amylase, which is what starts that digestion in your mouth. Okay, so make sure you write that down. That the parotid glands that secretes the saliva, and that saliva is rich in that salivary amylase, and the amylase is what actually starts your digestion. Okay, we're going to go to 52, slide 52. Okay, so we've talked about the pharynx. We talked about it quite a bit on Monday. Um, I'm not going to go too much into that so much. We talked about the pharynx. We talked about the epiglottis. The epiglottis is the little. It looks like just a little piece of meat just hanging at the back of your throat. But most people think that the epiglottis, like, what the heck does the epiglottis do? Okay. Well, what the epiglottis does, and I know we talked about this previous, but it helps keep food from entering the airway when swallowing. Okay. So you have a trachea, and then you have an esophagus. The trachea is in front of the esophagus. Esophagus, you're trying to get the food, drink, nutrients down into the stomach, right? But your trachea is literally for breathing, and that's all. Okay, so I say all that to say this: that epiglottis keeps it's like a flap almost, that keeps that food from entering the airway when you swallow. Okay, so that's a lot of times when you're swallowing, you can't breathe and swallow at the same time. Or if you try, you've heard people probably say it went down the wrong pipe. Okay, but that is the purpose of the epiglottis. Okay, we're going to go to slide 59 next. Okay. Slide 59. Okay, we're going to talk about the stomach. So we talked about the mouth, we talked about the teeth, we talked about the esophagus, we talked about glands and amylase and all that good stuff. Now we're down to the stomach. So we've eaten the food, things are taking place. Now we're down in the stomach. Okay. So as you can see, the fundus of the stomach, which is in your diagram, is up towards the upper right-hand corner. That fundus is the most superior part of the stomach. Make sure you know that, okay? That fundus is the most superior part of the stomach. But with the stomach, there are subdivisions. Okay, so you've got the cardia, you've got the fundus, you've got the body, and you've got that pyloric part. Okay, so that all of that well, in particular, the pyloric part of the stomach, that's where it starts entering into that small intestine. Okay, so your stomach is not very big at all, but it does do a lot of things. Okay. Your gastric rugae. Okay, so the rugae is the little, looks like on this diagram, the little folds of the skin. But that gastric rugae, that is folds in the mucosa and the submucosa part of the stomach. Okay, so what does the gastric rugae do? Well, it allows the lining to stretch as the stomach fills with food. So if you've ever eaten too much and you just feel like, oh my God, my stomach feels like it's twice the size that it was, that is because that gastric rugae has actually expanded to accommodate all of the food that you have eaten. Okay. All right, 60. Let's go to slide 60. Okay, 60. We need to, well, I say we, make sure that you know this diagram, okay? In particular, you want to know the esophagus, the lower esophageal sphincter, the cardia of your stomach, the duodenum, the pyloric part of the stomach, your gastric ragae, which is what we just talked about, the body of your stomach, which is basically the middle of the stomach, basically, your pyloric sphincter, and also the fundus of your sphincter, which, again, we said that fundus of the stomach is the most superior part of your stomach. Okay. All right. I hope I'm not going too fast, guys. I just know we got to get all this stuff in, okay? Next, we're going to go to slide 63. Okay, slide 63. So we're going to talk a little bit about we're talking about the gastric juices, but we're also talking about the parasympathetic part of that autonomic division. Okay, so here we go. I told you guys we're always going to be talking about all these body systems, always, all together, all the time. It's just what it does, right? So please write this down. The parasympathetic part of the autonomic division stimulates the intestinal mucosa, and also stimulates the secretion of your intestinal enzymes. Okay, so you got nervous system, you got all this stuff working together, right? So the parasympathetic part of the autonomic division that stimulates that intestinal mucosa, okay, which we just got through talking about, also, it stimulates the secretion of those intestinal enzymes. Okay, all of this is aiding in what? Digestion, right? Okay, let's go to the next slide, 64. Okay, so still talking about gastric juices, okay? But the gastric juice will convert food into chyme, okay? So what chyme is, so it, that gastric juice that is found in chyme, but it's the pepsin that particularly digests that food, and it is in hydrochloric acid. So here we go again, some things that we've talked about in the past. It's coming back. So that gastric juice converts that food into chyme, okay, with and the pepsin particularly digests the food and turns that into that hydrochloric acid. Okay, so I know that we talked about the stomach, and I know I said something like, I don't remember exactly what I said, but I said something like your stomach, your stomach acid is like worse than any kind of battery acid. 100% true. 100% true. If you didn't have all that mucosa and everything lining your stomach, the acid would literally eat through the lining of your stomach. That is how powerful that it is. Okay. Okay. So let's go to 65. Okay. So the control of your gastric secretions, it is increased by the parasympathetic action potentials and the hormone gastrin that is produced by the stomach. Okay, so there's things that go on in your stomach, and there's different body systems that come into play with this. So the control of the gastric secretion, so the amount of gastric secretions that is coming, that is found in your stomach, that is increased by that parasympathetic action potential. And then the hormone gastrin, that's what produces that hormone gastrin that is produced by your stomach. Okay, we're going to talk more about gastrin. We're going to go to slide 66. Okay, here we go. So gastrin is a hormone, okay? But the gastrin also stimulates that gastric gland secretion, okay? So what I said about the parasympathetic action potentials, this is what I'm talking about. Okay, so gastrin is a hormone, and it also stimulates that gastric gland secretion. Okay, and that comes from that parasympathetic action potential. Okay. All right, so let's go to 69, slide 69. Okay. All right, here we go. Pepsin. We talked about pepsin. Okay. Pepsin is a gastric enzyme. Okay. So what does it do? It breaks those proteins into smaller peptides. Okay. So with pepsin being that gastric enzyme, it's secreted in an inactive form, and it's activated by the low pH of gastric juices. Okay. Your intrinsic factor, that is something else that is secreted by your stomach. And it's essential for absorption of vitamin B12 in your small intestine because your body needs that B12, right? So make sure that you know that. Okay. Um, Still talking about digestion, okay, and also absorption. But the renin, okay, that's an infant enzyme. So with infants, you still have all the typical secretions of the stomach going on, right? But for infants, they also produce this, for lack of a better word, infant enzyme, and it is called renin. Okay, make sure you know that. It curdles milk proteins. Excuse me. It keeps it in the stomach longer because as an infant, all they drink is what? All they drink is milk, right? The either breast milk or your formula. So it keeps it in the stomach longer, but it also makes those proteins um, from the milk in the formula, breast milk or the formula, to make it more easily to be digested. Okay. So make sure that you know that in addition to all the other secretions that are done in the stomach, the infant enzyme also has the renin. Okay. All right, we're going to go to slide 72. Okay. Your pancreas. Okay. Your pancreas is not a part of the alimentary canal. And I feel like I probably should have kind of went into this a little bit longer. But all the way back on slide 6, it was the alimentary canal and the accessory organs. So the alimentary canal is just that long tube that food passes through. I did talk about it some, but not enough. Okay. So when I'm talking about the alimentary canal, that is what I'm talking about, that long tube that the food passes through. But I want you guys to make sure that you know that the pancreas is not part of that alimentary canal. Okay. But the pancreas is located behind the pyloric part of the stomach, and it's directly attached to the duodenum. Okay, why is that? Well, what it does is the pancreas secretes that pancreatic juice, and that's where it needs to secrete it at. Okay, so it's going to be right there, but as it's kind of going into the small intestine, that is where your pancreas is, and it does secrete that pancreatic juice. Okay, we're going to go to slide 74. Okay, slide 74. The duodenum, if you look in this illustration right here, the duodenum receives those secretions from the liver and the pancreas. Because if you look here, the liver and the pancreas is right there. It's right there at the duodenum. So it receives all the secretions by the pancreas and the liver right there in the duodenum. Okay, which is the start it's kind of has that curve, and then you go straight into that small intestines. Okay. All right, we're gonna go to the next slide. Okay. The secretion, okay, so we got the hormonal control of the secretion, okay, and it is acid chyme that enters the duodenum, and it causes that intestinal mucus to secrete secretin, which is a hormone, right? And it stimulates that secretion of the pancreatic juice that is rich in that bicarbonate ions, okay? So make sure you write that down. Okay, and I'm going to say it again. Secretion. That is the acid chyme that enters the duodenum, and it causes the intestinal mucosa or mucus to secrete the secretin, which is a hormone. Okay. And it also stimulates the secretion of the pancreatic juice that is rich in the bicarbonate ions. And I think we talked about bicarbonate ions on Monday, I think it was. So as you can see, everything's kind of fitting into place. Okay. Let's go to slide 78. Okay. Your pancreatic lipase, okay? In particular, just it is a pancreatic lipase, but it's lipase, okay? What does it do? So it is an enzyme. Lipase is an enzyme that basically breaks those triglycerides um it breaks it down into fatty acids and your mono glycerides and things like that, so that they are absorbable. Okay, because if you didn't have lipase that did that, then it would be hard for your body to absorb them. Okay, make sure you write that part down. All right, we're going to go all the way to slide 83. Okay, so your liver. So your liver it's got some blood supply to it, okay? So it's got the hepatic artery proper, the hepatic portal veins, and also your hepatic veins, okay? But blood traveling to the liver through that hepatic portal vein is higher in nutrients and lower in oxygen. Okay, let me say that again so you can write it down. The blood traveling to the liver through the hepatic portal vein is higher in nutrients, and it's lower in oxygen. Okay. So basically, what am I saying? Okay. So the hepatic portal vein, it doesn't have much oxygen in it, but is extremely rich in nutrients, because what does the liver and the pancreas, what is it by? It's by the duodenum, which is at the what? It's basically the end of the stomach going into what? The small intestine. Okay. That's how we get that going. That's how we get those nutrients and things in there. Okay. Okay. Let's go to slide 88. Okay. Gallbladder. Okay, your gallbladder, it stores bile between meals. I can't talk. But if you know somebody, or maybe it's yourself, that no longer has a gallbladder, you will experience some digestive issues. Okay, so Ms. Calloway, what do you mean by that? Well, it will decrease your ability to digest lipids. Okay, so your stomach you'll get sick. Some people get sick. Some people just have like maybe some diarrhea. Some people may have some vomiting. Some people try to stay away from certain types of foods, just things like that, because when your gallbladder is removed, it can cause digestive issues. Some people doesn't do anything to them at all. Some people it's like a nightmare for them. Okay, so make sure you write down that your gallbladder, it stores that bile between your meals, but if somebody has a gallbladder removed, they do experience digestive issues, such as the decreased ability to digest your lipids. Okay, let's go to slide 90. Okay. The only thing I need you to know on this particular slide is that part of your liver functions is the secretion of bile, the synthesizing of the blood proteins, and the converting nutrients, and also detoxification. Okay, I'll say it again. Liver functions, secretion of your bile, synthesizing those blood proteins, converting nutrients, and detoxification. Okay, now is that all that it does? No, but those are the ones that I really need you guys to study. Okay, all right, we're going to the next slide. Okay, bile. Talked about bile, have we not? So the bile salts emulsify the lipids in the chyme, meaning it breaks them down. Okay. So bile emulsifies those fats. Okay. And it's produced by the liver. Okay, so your bile is kind of yellowish green liquid. Okay, it looks a little nasty, but it's continuously being produced by the liver. So if you ever have like some type of a gastrointestinal virus or bug or maybe food poisoning or something along those lines, and you get to the point where you have literally emptied out everything in your stomach and you start vomiting like a yellowish green liquid, it is going to be bile. Okay, that means that there's nothing left in your stomach except for bile. Okay, now when I say there's nothing left in your stomach, yes, you still have your gastric juices and things like that, but I'm talking about like food wise. Okay, but just make sure that you know that bile breaks down those fats that are produced by the liver. Okay, and that bile salts emulsify those liquids, meaning it breaks it down. Okay, liquefies it, however you want to think about it, into that chyme. Okay, we're gonna go to slide 95. Okay, so let's talk about the small intestine. We talked about everything up from the small intestine. So now we're going to talk about the small intestine. Okay. Um, so we're going to, I want you guys to make sure that you write down that the hollow space inside of the digestive tract is called the lumen, Lumen. Okay. Um, and that the alimentary canal, which is known as the digestive tract, that is approximately 20 feet long in adults. Okay, so the lumen is the hollow space inside of the digestive tract, and that alimentary canal is approximately 20 feet long in adults, which when you think about it, if you have to, you got to put all that 20 feet, you got to crunch it all up into our bodies. So it's got a lot of twisting and turning and ups and downs and all kinds of stuff to get food and waste out of the body. Okay. Okay. Your duodenum, I know we've talked about this quite a bit. It is not NOT, an accessory organ to the digestive system. Okay. This diagram, you do need to know. You need to know where the duodenum is, the ascending colon, the cecum, the appendix, your ileum, your mesentery, your jejunum, and your stomach. Okay, so you need to know the duodenum, the ascending colon, your cecum, your appendix, your ileum, your mesentery, your jejunum, and your stomach. Okay, we're going to go to slide 100. We're almost there, guys. We're almost there. Okay. With this, an example of chemical digestion um, is when Your enzyme hydrolyze bonds between glucose molecules. I can't talk. I've been talking too much. So, an example of chemical digestion, I probably should have said this quite a few slides back, but I had kind of wrote it to the side and I forgot to move it. So, your example of your chemical digestion is whatever enzyme we're talking about. It bonds between the glucose molecules. So it hydrolyzes, meaning it attaches to or bonds between those glucose molecules. And that is an example of chemical digestion. Okay. We're going to go to 102 next. Okay. Um, the role of your digestive enzymes is that they make large, non-absorbable nutrients and they turn them into these molecules, these non-absorbable nutrient molecules into small absorbable ones. Okay, so with your digestive enzymes, make sure you write this down. Okay, the role of a digestive enzyme is they make this large non-absorbable nutrient molecules. It breaks them down, so to speak, into these small absorbable ones. Okay, so your pepsin is not an intestinal enzyme. Okay, so your pepsin, PEPSIN, is not an intestinal enzyme. Okay, let's go to 105. Okay. Um, so your lipids, okay, so you've got lipids and you've got lipid soluble. Okay, so your lipids and your lipid soluble chemicals are coated in protein when during absorption. Okay, and they are not they they're not soluble in the watery portion of the plasma, but they are when they're coated in the protein. Okay, so Miss Kelly, what the heck are you talking about? Okay, so what I'm saying is that if you have lipids and lipid soluble chemicals that are coated in protein during absorption, they aren't soluble in water, meaning they're not going to break down in water in the watery portion of the plasma. Okay, but they become able to be that way when they're coated in that protein. So just kind of think of it as like a little like a little coat that's over them. It's coated in this protein stuff. Okay. Let's go to 107 and it might help you guys kind of put that together. Okay. Okay. So the absorption of the proteins, okay, those are the amino acids and they are absorbed into the villi capillaries, which are small, right? They're very, very small. Okay. So to kind of build on what I was saying from the previous slide, you got to make sure that they can be um broken down enough to be able to go into or absorbed into these villi capillaries. Okay. So that's kind hopefully that kind of ties it together for you guys. Okay. Um, but I will say this, it is absorbed that once those materials are absorbed, they're processed before the blood will enter into the circulatory system. Okay, because here we go again. We're doing another system that is a part of it. Okay, all right. So let's go to 110. Okay, all right. So large intestine. We talked about the small intestine. Now we're in the large intestine. Okay. Um, this diagram you definitely need to know. Okay, you need to know the ascending colon, the ileal orifice, the orifice of appendix, the cecum, the uh, the appendix, the rectum, the anal canal, the sigmoid colon, can't talk, the ileum, the descending colon, and your transverse colon. Okay, so ascending colon, ileal orifice, orifice of the appendix, the cecum, the appendix, the rectum, the anal canal, the sigmoid colon, the ileum, the descending colon, and your transverse colon. Okay. Um, that's a lot, I know. But just try to make yourself maybe some type of uh flashcards or something. And it kind of, if you kind of follow it, it kind of follows along. Like if you can remember it like that, it'll kind of keep you in order so that you go through the whole thing. Okay. 113 is the next slide. Okay. Excuse me, the primary functions of the large intestines, okay, is obviously water, okay, and your minerals and your vitamins, okay. So without water within your large intestines, things wouldn't be able to move very well, right? Because you're going to be dehydrated, things going to get dried up, it's just going to stay there, and it's a big old mess, okay. So primary functions of your large intestines is the water content, the minerals, and the vitamins. Okay, because you got to get those minerals and vitamins in the body, but you also need water because your body's made up mostly of what? It's mostly made up of water. So you got to make sure that you keep it hydrated. Okay, let's go to 115. Okay. Um, so we've talked about digestive all the way through. Okay. The end product is feces. Okay. Feces is actually large amounts of mucus, it's large amounts of water, it's large amounts of bacteria. It's also got some non-digested food. Okay, so all of that is your feces. Okay, so if there's some bacteria that your body need to get rid of, guess what? It's going to be in your feces. Mucus, if you've had like a sinus infection or something and you don't, when it starts breaking up, you cough and then you swallow instead of spit it out or whatever the case may be, you could have mucus from that. You could just have mucus from mucus in your body, just in general, right? Water. You got to have, I just told you about water, is that things ain't going to move very well if you don't have that water. So you're going to have some water in there. And then also some food that you eat is literally non-digested. It's non-digestible, right? Um, and I'm not being funny when I say this, but I'm kind of being funny when I say this. What about those doggone pieces, the corn, the pieces of corn? You eat it, well, before you eat it, it's a kernel of corn, right? Well, guess what? When it comes out, and you know for a fact that you have chewed this up, right? When it comes out, it's back to that piece, that kernel of corn. And it's part of the digestive, and some of the enzymes and stuff, and it almost makes it like come back together. It's crazy for sure. Okay. Sorry, that was a side note. Let's go to 132. Okay. 132. Um, So your lipids, okay, so we've talked about some of your carbohydrates, we talked about the triglycerides, we talked about all that stuff, okay. But the lipids, the end products of your lipid digestion, they convert in these chylomicrons, um, in the lacteals within the epithelial cells, and they move into those intestinal villi. Okay, so lipids is part of your cholesterol. Lipids is something that is like your fats and things like that, part of your blood. Okay. You also have the triglycerides. Triglycerides are the most common in your diet. You've got saturated and you've got unsaturated. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about that. Okay. I'm going to go, nothing that you need to know for slide 135, but I just want you guys to know good and bads. Okay. So let's go to 135 real quick. Okay. So we're talking about the lipids part of it, okay? So you've got good and you've got bad lipids, okay? So your low density lipids, those are bad. Bad, 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 okay? Those are the transport the those lipids transport into your body cells, okay? So cholesterol, okay? They'll tell you don't eat too much fatty foods, don't do this, don't do that, blah 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 blah, okay? That contributes to your low density lipids. That is your bad cholesterol. Okay, your bad cholesterol. Now y'all have to remember I worked for a cardiovascular and cardiology, and people with heart problems, and even if you don't have heart problems, you want to keep your bad low density lipid to like 50. You do not want to go over 50, okay? Not saying that it's like, anything's going to really, I mean, it could happen, but it's not, it's just, it's kind of considered heart healthy. Okay. Um, that your low density is your bad. Try to keep those around 50, 60. Okay. Your high density, lipoproteins, that's good. So if you are active and you exercise and you do all that good stuff, that is your high density lipoproteins. Those are good. You want those to be kind of up some, right? Because those are good. That doesn't mean that it's going to do anything. They're not going to stick to your arteries. It's not going to make it bad for you. You're going to be all right. Those types of things. Okay. And then your triglycerides is your sugar. Your triglycerides should be low, 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 right? Because you don't want that to be too high because it can also cause a lot of issues, a ton of issues, actually. Okay. I'm going to go through just a couple more, a couple more slides, but we're actually done as far as things I needed to really point out to you. But I just wanted to show you slide 143. Okay, slide 43, my plate. This just basically is the my plate tells you what you should have of each, how many servings, things like that. If you're interested in maybe improving your health, you can go to myplate.gov, and it can really help you really get into what um, you could do to eat more healthy. Okay. So I know that we did not go through every single one of these slides. Please read over them. I know that we're kind of in crunch time, so I had to kind of make this crunch time. Please read through all of your slides. You can always go to Simple Nursing, look at his digestive system. Video on YouTube are the Amoeba sisters. I really like them too. You can also watch them to try to, everything that I've went over with you to try to get it, you know, more clear in your head because the digestive system, there's a lot going on. Okay. But again, thank you guys so much. I am in the process of doing chapter 16 and I will have it to you guys hopefully in the next couple of hours. All right. See you soon. Bye.